I'm Shelton Wilder, and welcome to Wilder Possibilities Podcast, where each episode follows an entrepreneur's journey into the transformative power of that light bulb moment where everything clicks. I call that the click. Those pivotal points that redefine our futures, illuminate paths to success, and even change the world. Now let's get wilder. Hi friends, welcome back to Wilder Possibilities Podcast with amazing entrepreneurs. And today I have a special guest. I have Laila Aitken Ali, and she is the owner of the Split Coach. And she's going to tell us all about it today and what it is, and just kind of your story too. I just love to know everyone's story and journey. So start us off. Yes.
Okay. So, well, where do I start? Yes, I'm known as the Split Coach. And no, I do not coach people on how to do splits because I haven't been asked that. And I do know how to do splits. I just don't know how to coach that.
Oh, like a split on the ground. I love that. That's amazing. Okay.
And there's a lot of like a split association because I also am the co-founder of a tech company called Split FYI.
Okay, yes.
So I've got a lot of the split action going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
But split meaning splitting.
Right, with a partner.
With the partner.
In this case scenario, the split means, it's a breakup. It's a separation. It's a divorce. Whatever you call it, that is like such a transition in your life. And
yes.
A
big change.
Very difficult one.
Yeah, a big change.
Very difficult one. And what led me to this space is my own journey. And usually that's the case, right? It's like, okay, you turn pain into purpose.
I like that. Pain into purpose.
Pain into purpose. And it's an interesting thing because if you would have asked me, 10 years ago or over 10 years ago, because I'll tell you the journey later, but in this case scenario, 10 years ago, I was in quite the thick of it. And I remember thinking, how can I ever help somebody else? Like, people would come to me and be like, how are you doing this? How they ask me? I'm like, I don't know. It's like a survival technique that you're just getting through.
Yeah.
Something that you never thought in a million years that you would be facing, right?
Wow.
You don't get married thinking you're getting divorced. That's for sure.
No.
And nobody usually does, even your second time, even your third, usually you're going in with that romantic idea that this is your partner for life. And I don't certainly want anybody to not think that. And it doesn't mean that every relationship ends in a breakup or a divorce or separation. But mine did. And I was super sideswiped by the whole thing because I didn't see it coming. I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And I was 6 months pregnant when it all happened. And at the end of the day, I would say that I remember, if I would explain it really well, I remember the moment that it was like, when you're sitting somewhere and you can't hear anything anymore, it's like that you don't hear sound.
Oh, wow.
When he said, this is over, it's done, I just remember thinking, like, I couldn't hear anything.
That's like
it was like, and I felt, and so why I'm explaining that moment is because that's what I felt for the first couple of years going through it.
Wow.
Right? I was like in this fog, in this inability to move forward, to understand the process, to who do I trust? What do I do? What help do I need? I was completely, I always say, I'm like, these kind of separations and breakups, when there is a lot at stake, finance, kids, all those things. It's like driving in a fog, right?
Wow.
Like you're driving in fog and you're like, I can only see maybe a couple kilometers in front of me, not even a couple of feet in front of me.
Yeah.
And I just have to trust the process and keep moving forward and driving through it. But I know that I'm never going to see the end anytime soon, right? Until it clears. And
wow.
And so that was, and I didn't know that then. I just thought, how am I ever gonna, how's it ever gonna get better, basically? So that began my journey.
That was it. How long were you married?
So I was married for 7 years.
You guys were married 7 years?
Married, yes. We were together. Well, we were together for 7 years, probably married for 5.
And then it happened 6 months pregnant.
Yes.
So I didn't expect that.
No.
I thought you were going to say it was because I got married when I was 6 months pregnant. That's when we got married. But that's, so when I think of that, I was thinking, oh, maybe it was fast and it happened fast. Okay.
That's why I was super sideswiped by the whole thing.
Yes, that is,
Don't
wow.
see it coming.
Wow. You were like, oh my God, we're having a baby now.
Yeah.
This is so exciting.
No, so even to add more flavor to the story, is that I was pregnant before then. And lost the baby. At the 9 weeks where people do. It's
yes,
which is normal. So we had already been trying. I got pregnant, miscarried, and then we continued trying. And 6 months later, I was pregnant again.
Oh,
so
okay.
This wasn't like a whoopsie surprise. I mean, it was planned, in our marriage.
Wow.
But so that I will say, I'm telling the story because it was the catalyst. It was the inspiration, I guess.
That's
that moment of my life. Yeah, but that moment of my life that I was like in a fog. That's where I'm like, I want to help people through that, because that moment is the. You can be in a divorce. I mean, I was in and out of court for 10 years. Okay. So I got my master's in divorce, literally.
Wow.
And, but the years preceding that, or after that, it wasn't as, I can't explain. I was in growth mode. I was learning. I was adapting. I was, all those things. I was a new mom. I mean, oh my God, I was completely distracted by it. But it's that moment when it just happens, and they're like maybe a year to 2 years. Everybody's different. For me, it was literally 2 years.
Wow.
The fog. That's where I was like, oh my God, that helping hand, that support, that need to connect. And in some cases, even if you're contemplating divorce, after what I went through, I became that go-to person for so many people.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm thinking of getting divorced. I just don't know how. Or my friend is getting a divorce. Can you help?
Can you talk?
Him?
Oh,
yeah. I became kind of that mentor. And and it felt good to help people through it, because I was like, this is, I remember how much I needed that, even though I had great friends and family. Oh my God. I mean, I have such a great support system. They didn't know what I was going through. They could not understand what I was going through, right?
Exactly. I haven't been through, so if somebody called me, I'd be like, oh, call Laila. That's what I say. I'm like, call Laila. No, I don't know. I don't want to say something wrong.
Right. And also you're invested in it too, because it's your good friend. And so you're angry for them. You want to protect them.
Yeah.
So you might not necessarily give them the best advice, or might not be doing the things that they actually really need in that moment. Right. And that I had to learn a lot. And I had to learn to how to navigate that and not listen to everybody, because everybody became a lawyer, a therapist.
Well, opinions are like assholes, and everyone has one. I mean, I'm sure it was so much coming at you, like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this.
You got to get the best lawyer, you got to go this, and it was like all these, God bless them, because I honestly, they're amazing for being there in my corner, but a lot of those voices really just exasperated how lost I was, basically. It wasn't helping me, right? Because I'm like, these are too many other voices in my head. They're not mine. I don't even know what I want. I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know who I am anymore. Like, who am I? I say, like, when you're in a relationship and you decide to get married, or you're in a relationship for a long time, to a certain degree, you lose sort of your sovereignty of decision-making, of, day-to-day stuff. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but you do.
But everything is a compromise when you're with a person. So there's always, and those are effective relationships when there is compromise.
Absolutely.
All the time.
Absolutely.
So if you're not, then it's like, too one-sided. But yes, so you do lose some autonomy, because you're, you have to run things by people if you want to have a good, but you're a partner,
You're absolutely doing that, and you're not making the decisions for yourself all the time, because you divide and conquer, which is totally normal.
Yes.
Marriage is a business in a way.
Yes, it absolutely is, for sure.
So, in fact, in America, they've really designed it around that, because it's cost effective, you pay less taxes. I mean, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
So, you find yourself in the situation where the person that you would normally, give up some of that decision-making power to is not there for you, not in your corner anymore.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And you're like, what is this? When I just listen to myself? Haven't done that for a while. How is that? So it's a huge journey to self. And I will say that's the gift in all of it. And I say that all the time. I'm like, every breakup is a teaching moment, because it really, it clarifies who you are all the time. You start really tapping into who you are as a person, right? Hard to do right off the bat, for sure.
Oh, yeah. To be like, oh, this is so good for me.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I know when I say that to sometimes to people, because in our community, we meet up like,
oh, yeah. I want you to tell us how you work.
Yeah, I will go to that. But I'll just say that a lot of people, when they show up and they've been, coming to my sessions or to our community gatherings, they'll often say, I was like, I know you can't feel this right now, but I guarantee you will see the gift in all of this. Because there is a gift in it. But no, I can't see it. And that's okay too, but I'm so sure of it. I know that.
Yeah, you're positive. You're positive.
I know that they will see that. Mm-hmm. And even in my darkest moments, and that's why I think, like, I look back, I didn't see that, but look at me now. And I'm like, I wouldn't take it back for a second. I'm like, I learned so much about myself. I realized that, wow, I can do really anything if I can get through that, and I can survive through all of that and show up as a mom the best I could, right? Through it all, I was like, I can do really hard things. I got this.
And you got your amazing
girl.
Yeah, she's incredible. You talk about her, I know, like the sweetest,
I mean, she's in teenagehood, so like.
Oh yeah, wow.
I'm still kind of trying to look for sometimes. I'm like, come on, I know it's in there. I'm so crazy that I'll show her like videos of me, of her. I mean, when she was little.
Like, look.
Look what she used to do.
This is what we're trying to get back to.
Stop it, Mom. I know what you're doing. I'm like, I know.
That's so good.
And they're so documented, so it's great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, this is what you were like. Bring her back.
I mean, I definitely apologize to my mom, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, like, God.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Oh. Mm-hmm.
But she is amazing. And we have, it's what, as you know, you have kids. I mean, it teaches you so much, in life. And so, and it's a constant reminder of that my growth is definitely not done. No way. And in regards to, divorcing someone when you have kids, you really have to get your mindset around the fact that it's not your relationship's just changing. It might be, and I hate the word divorce because it feels like it's so that's it. It's done,
yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
But actually, what you're doing is you're just going from a marriage status to another status. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And that is, and that's, what is it? It's not even a status. It's just like you're co-parenting, or you're guiding the children together, whatever you want to call it. Parallel parenting. There's so many different types of ways.
Although, okay.
All of the above. Right. Sometimes, two people don't get on very well, and they just reserve to the fact that they're going to parallel parent, but they're not aligned on all of that stuff. So you parent your way, I parent my way, but we're still parenting.
Oh, okay.
And there is always that contact over really difficult things and so forth, right? So, but yeah, it doesn't make it easier if you don't have kids, because there is
that's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
because people will say that they'll be like, "Oh, it's fine. Well, you don't have kids." Have you heard that?
In the long run,
okay,
it might be easier in the long run.
Yeah,
for sure. But in that hot second moment, of not even second, but as you know, it could be like years. Mm-hmm. In that fog, let's call it that moment. It's hard for everybody. It's hard for everyone, right? It is more difficult when you have kids, only because you're signed up for life.
I mean, yeah, you're
going to be dealing with that person forever.
Yeah,
right, and that can make it really difficult. But you really learn, in the process, and so it does get easier. I always say that.
Yeah, that's great. And so, how long after you got divorced did you start the business?
So that's
like your click, like the
click.
Because there was a lot of clicks, you said.
There's a lot of clicks.
Okay.
So the first click happened was I realized I was in for it. I had an ex who definitely wanted to take me to court and, put up a fight. So I signed up for the local college in the UK. I was living in London at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I signed up for this accreditation course on becoming a mediator.
Oh, so you were like, well, I'm just going to double down in here.
I am going to learn how to negotiate. I am going to learn.
Yeah, I love this.
Deal with my situation. By the way, I was becoming a mediator, not for like other people. I was just thinking, let me just help myself through this.
Yeah.
Right? And just get savvy. And in fact, on that course, which was pretty intense, I was the only non-lawyer or barrister, they call it barristers also in there. So I had no real legal background. I'm like thrown in the doghouse with like looking up some of these words that they were using. I was like, what is this word? Okay. But it was the most amazing. I actually passed and I became a mediator.
Woo!
Okay. All right. So that was the first actual, it gave me a sense of security, right? And agency over like just me, myself, my decisions, my everything, my gut. I was like, oh, I can start listening to my gut. And I can communicate in a different way. And it doesn't have to be like this. It was that click that helped me realize that it just doesn't have to be this way. Right? I'm not going to change the other person.
No.
way.
We can never.
Change the situation. No. But I can change how I'm operating.
Yeah.
That was the aha, right? And after I became a mediator, all of a sudden, I really had everybody coming to me. Oh, my friend is going through a divorce. Can you please help her? Can you do this? My friend is can you help him? So it was like him, hers coming at me.
Oh, not just women, just the guys too, both. Everyone. Yeah, everyone.
And
you got the word out.
I got the word out. I was like, okay.
That was
all right, I'm helping
your marketing tool.
Yeah, I get it because I was probably the first out of my peers.
Oh, I did. Oh,
yeah, because I was young. I was 35 when it all
wow, yeah,
this whole process. 34, and so most people were getting married and having kids while I was going through a divorce. So then fast forward, 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden some other people were getting divorced.
Oh, yeah.
In my community and then outside of the community, and the word spread. And so I became, I guess you'd call it at the time, because I didn't even know a divorce coach even existed, I became a mentor.
Okay.
I just mentored people through it because I realized that my forte wasn't about mediation. It was really helping the individual because I had such insight. A lot of the mediators out there weren't people who went through divorce. They were like a legal background or somebody who wanted to get into that space, but they didn't have that sympathy, empathy, whatever part of
empathy,
which probably suits a mediator well, because then you don't really take sides because you're not supposed to, by the way. So I found it really difficult when these stories were told. I was too like, oh my God. It really affected me. So I realized that it helped. My strong suit was really helping people through it.
Okay.
And helping them get out of, I like to call it like this like SAS model. It's,
what's
going
that?
from
The story
to acceptance.
Yeah.
To strategy. That's like the overarching theme of my coaching, basically my mentoring, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's always that. That's like every session or every time I'm talking to someone or I'm helping someone and supporting them or even a community. It's that. It's there's a story, because there's always a story. Everybody's got a story.
But you got to take them out of the story.
Got to take them out of the story.
Yeah.
What can they accept out of all of that? Like, what is the one thing, right, that you can accept and say, okay, I got to deal with this, or I can accept this, or whatever it is, that kind of acceptance piece into like, let's get into strategy now. Like, what can, you can't, for example, somebody comes to you and it's like, they're constantly changing the dates of the co-parenting agreement.
Oh God.
He's not reliable and I don't know what to do. And it's like, okay, here's the story of everything, but it's deeper rooted, by the way, because the story comes from all the betrayal. It's like all heated with a lot of stuff. I was like, okay, let's concentrate on the one thing.
So much emotion.
There's so much emotion.
You've got to bring them
right.
out.
You're not going to make any headway in an emotional state.
No.
You're just not, right? So it's my job to take like that person into a state of just acceptance, into the present moment, into what can they, work on now, and then to that strategy piece. And strategy can be so many different things. Like, is it a way of communicating? Is it something logistical that they have to do, right? Mm-hmm. Or is it something that they can do for themselves?
Yeah. Is it like strategy equals solution?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, there is a solution. And it's also understanding that, in divorce, especially in divorce, you don't have control over an outcome.
No, just yourself. Just yourself.
Just how you're reacting, just how you're behaving.
Yes.
What are you doing? Like, how are you checking in on yourself? And are you happy with the way that you're behaving and reacting?
And taking responsibility.
Right.
That's what really comes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes how you're reacting, right?
Yeah.
To what's happening.
Well, no, absolutely.
That's the only thing you can control.
Well, everyone thinks the other person's the bad actor. I'm like, well, there takes two. There's two bad actors sometimes in this situation. Yeah. Not always, but I'm just saying that you have to check in on yourself too. Like, what are you doing to potentially instigate it? Is there something you can shift and move away from, or accept and move on from?
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it.
I know.
The money, the energy, the stress.
Yeah. The holding on. That's so helpful. Because when we first met, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful that they have a place to go rather than just directly like straight to the lawyers.
Exactly.
It's like, oh my God. And then that's like really gets things heated. Mm-hmm. So even Clark, my husband's an attorney, not a divorce attorney, but he just said sometimes that the lawyers end up winning if it just keeps going on and on. So when I met you and you're like the first call, I just thought, oh my God, that's so helpful and genius, and like people can talk it through rather than as soon as the lawyers get involved.
Absolutely.
It can go really dark.
It's the best place to be, a position to be, because I wish I had a me when I was
I know.
Like, I didn't know who to turn to, who to go to, who to trust, and even choosing a lawyer, by the way.
That's why I thought for you that you're that first line, and you can help. Like, you might meet the people right and say like, this lawyer could be good for you. Do you ever help?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But I think that's so helpful.
But it's like, what is your ex like? All right. Give me a little bit of an understanding of what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Like, what is your story is basically it. Right. And from your story, who you are as a person and what your needs are. Right. Like, for example, everyone's like, just get a shark as a lawyer and who's going to fight your fight. You don't necessarily need that. Now, if somebody comes to me and is like, I just really want to mediate it, or really want it to be as amicable as possible.
Yes.
You're not going to want to get a lawyer who's going to fuel the fire.
Let's don't get a shark then. No.
You don't need that. And there's a process. Like, what you can't do is, if you're really thinking about mediating, and that's the possibility, then yay, because I'd love that. I do.
Yeah.
And you can always, if you feel insecure about your positioning, and I always say this, get yourself a consulting lawyer. And you just get a consulting lawyer who's not your represented lawyer, but is a consulting lawyer who can actually really tell you, well, what's going on in mediation is you're being taken for a ride, and actually you need to kind of do this. And how about you position a little more strategic, right?
Okay.
So while you're in mediation.
I didn't even know that existed.
It does exist.
Yeah. So
lawyers
see,
are consulting lawyers.
See, you got to call.
You gotta call. And what? So to take it a step further. So yes, I was a mentor.
Yeah.
This is in the UK, and then I've had this idea all along when I was going through my divorce, and I was, like I said, in and out of court like 10 years.
Oh, that sounds really.
Yeah, and it was all for children affair. Like, nothing. The financial bit was done in 2 seconds. It wasn't about that, and unfortunately, there was that angst and that fight and that whatever. And okay, so be it. But it taught me a lot. And I always thought, there needs to be a place where people can kind of land. On the internet, I was like, okay, now everybody's using this internet thing. And I was like, somebody who can gather information that's unsolicited. It's not coming from lawyers, but it's this friendly advice, not even advice, but information.
Yes.
Education around divorce that doesn't come from that like legal aspect, right? It's like, how do you prep? How do you interview a lawyer? How do you interview a mediator? Where can you go for all of those things? A resource hub, right? So I always thought that's what we need to do.
A resource hub.
Create a resource hub plus a place for people to connect. Right?
Yeah.
That's important. So I feel isolated. I was so isolated in my experience. Even though I have great friends, like I said, they were all getting married and having kids, and they were super supportive. But how much can I talk about my divorce or, gain insight from them? I actually went to a church divorce support group.
Well, because you were,
but I'd never been to church in my life. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to sign up.
Yeah.
I need the connection. I need to meet people who are going through
the same thing. That's like 12 step. Yeah. Like it's very similar. You have to, if you're going through the same thing, you can really connect on a different level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was super important to me to create a space for connection. Okay. So then that is what led me to Split FYI.
Okay. That's amazing.
So
yeah.
I moved to LA 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which that was an experience in itself. Even though I'm American, I've been living in Europe for over half my life.
Oh.
And so my culture shock, here we go. That was a transition.
Wow.
It almost brought up the same feeling of, oh my goodness, this is a new life, new beginning. I was like, oh, I know these feelings,
Wow.
I was like, okay, navigating them again. But I realized I'm in the best place possible to start this company. I'm going to do it. And so I actually got an accreditation for divorce coaching.
There's an accreditation.
There is, and of course, in America, there is accreditation for everything. So I came here and I'm like, wow, and it's an amazing accreditation, like super thorough. It's called the CDC, and that taught me so much, actually. And so I really put like a stamp to this whole mentoring coaching. I call it like a doula supporting.
Oh, yes. I love that. Yeah. Yes.
And while I was on the program, I had already started the idea of, okay, let me create this tech space, somewhere where people can get to via the web and connect with other people and gain, insight and resources and all that stuff. And I met somebody on the course who, her name's Heather, and she is a CDFA. So it's a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Which, while I wish I had that when I was going through my divorce.
But I've heard in divorce they have those, what do they call those? Accountants? But they're called like the... Forensic accountant.
Yeah, that's different.
Okay.
So you hire a forensic accountant, which is like $20,000.
Yeah. I'd heard about that.
If you're questioning...
Like if hiding money in...
Yeah.
Okay, so she's different.
No, this is
She
different.
does...
No, she's a certified divorce financial analyst, meaning she, in California specific, but she can help people around the world because to a certain degree, all the finances and the preparatory work and everything are similar. But she knows the laws around, California law, financial distribution, understanding what you need to do, looks at all your finances. For example, we were talking earlier, like oftentimes when people are going through a divorce, one person wants to keep the marital home, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, for a lot of reasons. There's an attachment to it. They're scared to leave it. They've got kids. There's a lot of justifications of why they want to keep the marital home. And her job will really to be like, let's look at your numbers. Let's look at the financial outlook. Right?
Yeah.
All of this on a spreadsheet. And if you keep the house, in 2 years, you'll run out of money, basically. So now it's your choice. Do you want to fight for the house or not? So now you have knowledge around it. You're not playing in the dark. You're not just fighting to fight. You're like, oh my God, if I keep this house, I'm going to run out of money and I won't be able to
keep the house. Right? Yeah. It'll be,
A lot of people don't even know that and they don't have that insight. And I'm going to tell you, that is one aspect of my divorce that, lawyers are great for the law. They're not great with finances.
Oof.
And so you're reliant on them to tell you and guide you through all of that. But really, that's something that is personal, right? To understand what you can and cannot live with. But it's also, and yes, the law is also enmeshed in all of that. But it's really important for you to know, what does that outlook look like? And what can I do? Someone needs to tell me.
And future numbers, really looking
future numbers. Like,
yes.
even if I get a job today, you know, if I haven't been working, or even with a job that I have,
Wow.
you know, when I or assuming a mortgage, or I do this, or
What you can really
speak to this
Oh,
really
yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that world. And especially with interest rate, looking at the market today, how different it was back then. You got a mortgage on 2%. Now it's like
now it's 7. So what are you going to do?
What are you going to do with that? You can't afford it. So, you know, all these things. Anyway, it's so her line of work and her job is really to like really show you, here's the big picture. And I'm going to help you negotiate around the finances.
Okay.
Because let's be creative. Because in every financial dispute, right? Let's say that a lot of times people are fighting over the money and, you know, the assets. There's always something that means more to one person than the other. Right? And so there can be negotiations made around that isn't going to be probably like for like, but it will be that I'm happy with this situation. So, and I can walk away with this, right? I mean, because I'm looking at everything on the spreadsheet and I'm understanding what's going on.
Oh, wow. So she sounds very helpful.
Oh, she's really helpful. I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you. So I told her about this idea. She's like, I love this idea. I love this platform. I think it's so needed. Let's do it. So that was our kickstart into getting into the tech world.
Oh, wow.
Well, that was a new one for me. That was an interesting one.
Oh.
And I learned a lot for sure. I'm still learning. So slowly but surely we created this platform. And in that view to create a space for community.
Yeah.
To get educated and to get connected to other professionals that are outside of the legal, like even, you know, insurance brokers or other divorce coaches or CDFAs, realtors, a whole slew of people, kind of that village of support that you're going to need, professionals that you're going to need. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, again, the education, the resources, the hub of all of that, and then the connection to the community. And we hold...
you were saying you had some...
So we have...
workshops almost?
Or like... We have... Every now and then we have workshops.
Okay.
They're one-offs, but every week we have 2 sessions. So Friday morning we meet 9 a.m. at, you know, Pacific time. But we meet and it's called Coffee Talk. So it's a place where it's kind of designed like it's Cheers.
Like on Zoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, okay. People come from all around the world.
Oh, wow.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So you really get flavor of like, you know, everybody's going through the same kind of emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
But they're connecting with one another and they're supporting one another and they're creating a community, right? Mm-hmm. And they're learning from one another.
Oh, yeah. Like this worked for you. Maybe I should try this. Or you can always learn better from your peers sometimes 100%. Rather than someone just preach to you.
Exactly. So, and it allows them to be also in this kind of mentorship role.
Oh.
Which they feel good about because they're like, well, I've just helped somebody through it. And even though I'm dying in my own divorce, I was able to... it could help somebody else out. Amazing. You know, they feel good. There's a feel-good factor to it.
Yeah.
So every Friday morning we meet. Every Wednesday we have my business partner and I are mentoring people through accountability hour, which is actually an hour and a half. And people come and work on their divorce. Yeah. So it's a space where they can bring the paperwork or anything that they have or any letters that they might have to write.
Wait, on Zoom?
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, I want to go through this.
Do this. What do you think? And they've got 2 experts on there that help them. And by the way, that's like gold dust because you have a CDFA, you have a divorce coach,
mediator,
who are like giving you strategy, helping you through the crappy things that you're going through.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So that is in itself just worth being part of the community, right?
Yeah.
And then every other Saturday, we have a female-led support group, which is a lot more structured in the sense that there's either somebody coming in to talk about certain things. It could be finance. It could be co-parenting. It could be, you know, breathing techniques, whatever, you know, resources for, you know, finding your new home.
Oh, yes. I'll come on there.
I know, 100%. No, really. And it's and why it's just female, because I feel like there's sometimes we had tried to do an all male one. many people showed up, unfortunately. That's still there. The brotherhood aspect of things, we still have that, and we're, available for it if enough people show up. But it really allows women to just kind of relax.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're so triggered by seeing men in certain spaces. Mm-hmm. And I get that. So we created that space. So those are like the in community kind of meetups.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll have jurisdictional meetups in person, depending on how many people are signed up. Especially here in LA and San Diego, where my business partner.
Oh, that's so nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Love that.
And then we have WhatsApp groups where you can connect on. And so that's all female one, and, jurisdictional ones, and all male one. So there also you get mentored by professionals, and you can put in some questions in there.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of resources on tap for people.
That's amazing.
I have recognized that not everybody has the luxury of getting a divorce coach, right?
Yeah.
Or a CDFA. Or, have all this diligent support. And I completely understand that. And that's why this is so important. The space is so important. I mean, we do charge a little bit, but we charge because I believe that you have to be accountable. It's like being in a gym membership.
Yeah.
You're not going to go if you don't pay.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Yeah.
And it's such a, low threshold that it's enough that it keeps you accountable, but it's not that it will break the bank, and you have access to these professionals. So.
Yeah. So you don't have to get your own private split coach necessarily, but you get access to you, and you learn from other people when you're there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So sometimes just a ton, because they might ask or bring up a
question
that was like, wait a minute.
That's what
and then in 2 weeks that would come up for them. Exactly. They're like, oh my God, I heard how to go through it.
Exactly. Especially the common denominator, if we have a lot of people actually with no kids in the group.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting. But the common denominator, what comes up a lot is when you are dealing with the co-parent. And that, by the way, everybody's dealing with. So you learn a lot through all of that, right? And,
yeah.
What has worked for other people? Maybe I can try that aspect of it, or that way of communicating.
Oh, yeah. Let's try this.
Some strategies that come up.
Wish my parents had this.
I know.
They just never spoke again.
I know. I've had...
ever. It would be just yelling at each other across the front lawn. I mean, it was so humiliating. I was like, oh my God. Okay. I'm like, well, never getting divorced. Not me.
No.
Because I just, oh my God.
I know. Well, we were talking about this earlier. We weren't online, but, we were recording, but people, unfortunately, we're human, and sometimes humans have ugly sides to them, and it really can come out tenfold when you're divorced, unfortunately. And I think the catalyst to all of that is fear, because everybody translates fear into different emotions and ways of acting, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the baseline everybody's going through. Some people are just fearful of losing money. Some people are fearful of losing time with their kids. Some people are, more fearful of just what is life going to look like. I mean, even fearful of having sex with somebody else later on. Even that thought process.
Yeah.
There's so many fear-based emotions that are happening within you that you are operating from that place.
It's not your high self.
No.
When you're in that fear
mode.
No, for sure.
No, unfortunately, the best doesn't come out. And you often see two people who once really loved each other and committed to each other be reduced to horrible enemies and really hurting each other. And that's a shame. It's a real shame. And again, the real shame is, especially if you have kids, is that they're the ones who are subject to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
they're the ones who are going to suffer the most.
This is interesting.
Right. Because you have memory of that. In some cases, it helped you understand. For so many reasons that you're this is what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, that's
Yeah. And I love all my siblings.
Right.
Now we have 5, so yay for that.
Yeah. There's, like I say, there's a gift in everything. Yes. You just don't see it. You don't always see it right off the bat. And that's okay. But you just know, I guarantee the gift will show itself.
Yeah.
It will. And many gifts might show themselves. Like you've got siblings and you've learned, what not to do in relationships.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some in behavioral patterns that you're like, I don't want to even subject myself to.
Oh.
So there is, again, it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
It's a journey to self.
Yeah.
The becoming of yourself.
It's so true. And you're with an amazing
Yes,
partner.
I'm remarried.
Yes.
And I will say it's really interesting. Everyone's like, I can't believe that you could have trusted somebody, after all that.
You love your guy.
Yeah, no, but but there, because of what happened,
Yeah.
in
The
my
trust was broken,
in my
so-
life. But I always say, I'm like, that's a chapter, and that's a person who showed their colors. That has nothing to do with me. I'll learn my lesson of what I did, because I always believe it takes two.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not going to take responsibility of his behavior, of what he did and chose to do. I will take responsibility of my own. And I also, doesn't mean that everybody else is going to be like that.
No.
And if you learn to trust yourself, by the way, then you'll trust other people. So I always say it's not about trusting other people. It's about trusting yourself, because the beginning, when you're going through this, you don't trust yourself. Like I mentioned earlier, you forgot how to make decisions on your own. You kind of became you were in a role, right? I was wife, I was husband, I was this, I was mother, I'm this, I'm that, like all these roles. And all of a sudden that's shaken up. And so you're like, who am I? So you're not trusting yourself. And that journey to trust yourself is the key in really kickstarting that trusting other people.
Yeah.
Right? It starts with yourself.
Yeah.
Always.
And then you can trust your gut more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because you start really, you're like, oh yeah, I feel, it's like you start realizing it's feelings.
You can feel. Oh God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
Yep. Right?
That's major.
I mean, how many times?
Trusting my gut. Oh my
100%. Like you're in a space with somebody that is triggering you, but triggering you meaning your body, and you're like, oh my God, this doesn't feel right. Why does it not feel right? Like they're not necessarily saying anything that's out of the norm, but you're like, no, this feeling isn't right. It doesn't sit right with me. Or they say one thing that now you realize that one thing, there's a lot of other consequences to that one thing.
Yeah.
So you're more hyper vigilant and aware of, your own feelings and your trust factor and your gut, like you say. And so the instincts that they've been dormant for a while.
Yes. Yes. I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you found.
Yes. And so leading to that question, like 2 years in, and it took me a while, but I think clarity started happening. Like I said to you, I became more sovereign in the way that I was leading my life and my decision making. And as soon as I started trusting myself, boom, somebody showed up.
Oh.
Right. And that person showed up, and I was like, wow. And it was somebody that, yes, he's a trustworthy guy, but it wasn't about him. It was about me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm ready. And it feels good to be with somebody who's, that you can really trust and count on.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's been a journey. And by the way, and he, God bless him, like he was around, with some really difficult times in the process too. Right. And I made it very clear, and I always say this to people, once you're going through it, the clearer you are with other people, the better it is your relationships are with other people.
Okay.
So it's not your job, and I said this, it's not your job to solve all of this. I'm not looking to you to solve these situations. I love the support and the presence that you give, and that's it. Oh. You don't need to be like, problem solver, or tell me what to do, or all those things. There's no need to be the fixer. And I said that to my friends too, and my family.
Yeah.
Eventually, when I got my voice back and I understood and the clarity back, I was like, hey, actually, and that made for better relationships, by the way.
Well, that's great advice. Mm-hmm. And a pro tip here.
Pro tip over here.
Right here. Just
right here. Yeah. Recognize that, especially I have people come to me like, I'm just so upset and frustrated with my friends. They're saying this, doing this. I said, well, are you clear with them of what you really need?
And in your boundaries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother episode, boundaries in itself.
Yeah, boundaries.
Wow. I mean, I could talk for days about that. So, that's a huge one. Yeah. It's a boundary episode.
Amazing.
Much needed.
Yeah, I know, for sure. And then my last question is, what does home mean to you?
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
I know, it's kind of a strange question. I never tell you ahead of time. I'm going to ask it.
Well, it's interesting because I often used to say home was where my mom is.
Aww.
I know. And my mom, not perfect mom, by the way, like we don't have perfect moms.
No.
But what I meant by that is the ecosystem that she created, right? This open house, loving environment, smell great. It's a smell, it's a feeling, it's an openness, and it's a comfort zone, right? And that is what I would say home. And you can change your structures everywhere, but if you have that, that's home. So I would say in why I would say it's my mom, because no matter where she's lived or wherever she is, that's how I feel when I'm in her space.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, always. I mean, she is that person. She might complain and she might do all those things, and she's mom and might repeat herself 100 times. Oh my God. And trying to give me advice all the time. I mean, that's, whatever, that's par for the course. But it is that feeling of like, I feel comfortable. I feel like I belong.
That's so special she gave you that.
Yeah.
You gave that to your daughter.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so.
Yeah. Well,
I hope so. She's way too early to probably ever admit that. Maybe down the road.
I mean, down the road.
Yeah, down the road. I hope so. And I believe that. I've definitely mirrored a lot of the things that my mom taught me growing up. She's Italian. The Italian home is always one of like, open house, welcome home, welcome. I'm going to cook. I love cooking. I love, creating the space. We're always having dinner on the dinner table. People don't eat in different times. Like those are things I stuck to. And there's little things. They're just little things that maybe it annoyed her. And by the way, as a teenager, it's definitely annoys her. She tried to rush through her food so she could get up and go and be in her room on the phone. I got her number. I was like, nope, you're going to go when we're all done.
Yeah.
In this house.
That when the boys sit with us and we eat our dinner, it's not often, not like you, but when they were babies, they had to say this, and they still say something. They're like, "May I please be excused, gorgeous mommy?"
Oh, I love it. Yeah, yes, I love it. Oh, good. You're raising good boys to acknowledge.
And they're like, "Are we still saying?" Oh, absolutely. This is what we say, gorgeous mommy.
I love it.
Well, so.
No, but honestly, remember this. It's like I always say, you're a mom to boys, right?
Yes.
And you're paving the way forward of how they treat women and vice versa. Even my girl, I'm like, I know I mentioned earlier, I was like, I want her to not lose herself in a relationship that often women do. And, and so a strong woman, but not one that is ashamed of being feminine and being a woman too.
Yeah.
If you want to provide for your man, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I watched my mom provide for my dad, so, and by the way, they got divorced too. So that's a whole nother story. But like, again, she still, that was her happy place. It was to provide. It was to be for other people. So, yeah.
Well, everybody has their own story, and thank God for you.
Yeah.
You are helping so many people.
Thank you.
And where do they find you?
So, so many places, but Instagram, you can find me.
Yes. You do great videos.
Oh, thank you.
On,
thank you.
And I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to hopefully guide people and support people and give them some information that might help them. The Split Coach or Split FYI, which is pretty easy to remember, both places. And we have splitfyi.com if you want to join the community.
That's so great.
Yeah, and I'll give you all the details, but that's where they can find me. The best place is probably even social media.
I know, the DMs. We love it.
I'm even on YouTube too. I guess we're on everything, really.
We gotta be
we're on everywhere, so we can spread the word. But
that's so good. Well, I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
Very inspiring.
Thank you.
Helping so many people.
Thank you so much.
So thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
I'm Shelton Wilder, and welcome to Wilder Possibilities Podcast, where each episode follows an entrepreneur's journey into the transformative power of that light bulb moment where everything clicks. I call that the click. Those pivotal points that redefine our futures illuminate paths to success, and even change the world. Now let's get wilder.